lights shine them bright. Gonna have a brand new show tonight with glitz and glam on the marquee. Perhaps a Tony nominee. Stars beam brightly, see them glow. Sell out nightly, SRO. It's time to applaud the Broadway Beat. Stars beam brightly, see them glow in the sunlight of a show. Life is sweet on the world's most famous street.
Tickets, please.
Take a seat
Cue the band.
and have your feet to the rhythm of the Broadway Beat. The Broadway Beat. Broadway Beat.
Hello, I'm Richard Ridge, and welcome to Broadway Beat, our weekly half-hour behind-the-scenes look at the very best of a New York theater on Broadway and beyond. This week we return to the barricades, we meet 4 new boys from Jersey, and we dance to the Latin beat. We'll stop by B.B. King's for the 2nd annual Latin Rhythms, an evening of singing, salsa, and dancing, benefiting Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS, and hosted by Tony Award winner Chita Rivera. We'll also meet the new touring cast of the musical Jersey Boys and give you a sneak peek as they embark on their national tour to San Francisco. But let's start things off at Tavern on the Green, where the cast of the new production of Alain Beaubille and Claude Michel Schoenberg's Les Miserables celebrated their return to Broadway's Broadhurst Theater. Once again, under the direction of John Caird, Les Mis is back, captivating audiences who first fell in love with the international musical in 1985. What amazed me, it was like seeing the show 4 days ago, like I saw it for the very first time. And I think a lot of that has to do with the wonderful casting that was done. Would you agree with that?
Oh, certainly. It has to do with 2 things, I think. The wonderful casting, which has opened every door to include a multiracial cast, which has allowed us to have people like Daphne Rubin-Vega, who is here, Norm Lewis, who is a fantastic Javert,
and a wonderful little Cosette,
and the little
Chinese.
Cosette, who's Chinese, and another one is Filipino, I think. So, I mean, this is already fantastic. And the second thing are the new orchestrations, on which we have been working with a young team, and the producer and the director. And I must say that we were doubtful at the beginning that this was needed to have new orchestrations. It was Cameron's idea, but finally we have to agree, and I think it has brought a lot to this revival.
Now, you just celebrated your 21st year, I believe, with the show in London.
We are?
Yeah. Look back at the past 21 years. I'm sure so much has happened for you, but just talk about the audience's attraction to the show and the timelessness of the story.
Well, fortunately, this story is obviously timeless, because that novel was timeless long before we imagined. The novel by Victor Hugo was timeless long before we imagined that we would one day turn it into a musical. Well, fortunately, in the last 21 years, we've been doing a few other things and written a few other shows, like Miss Saigon, as you may know. We wrote another little show called Martin Guerre, and we have this week in preview in Chicago The Pirate Queen, which is soon going to open in New York next April, on which we are still working, and which for us an incredible adventure. We will probably have 2 shows on Broadway at the same time next spring.
Well, it's been hard because it was such a short rehearsal process, and this show is so dense and it's so deep in a lot of different ways. But it's been a great journey to go on and trying to find the truth in what this character is all about. Javert, he's always seen as a villainous role, but he's just a guy that has, he believes in a certain way, and so it's been kind of fun just going through this journey.
I look in the mirror. This is the truth. I look in the mirror and I smile.
I smile the most wicked smile I can. One of those things, and because this guy, he may be a villain, but the wonderful thing is, like, people, actors, we all say, well, we never play. We always like the people we play. Oh, I liked Nardier a lot, but he knows he's wicked, and that's part of his charm, I think.
Master of the house, keeper of the zoo, ready to relieve them of a sou or two, watering the wine, making up the weight, picking up their knickknacks when they can't see straight.
I think I've mentioned to you before how awful he is. He's just totally inconsiderate, he's unkind, he's not at all loving, he doesn't care what anybody else does. Of course, it's been a complete joy and pleasure to work with him. It's great. I adore him.
I've seen the show numerous times on Broadway with many incarnations of different people going into the show, but you two work so well together. And just your interpretation of the role, I know it's in the writing, but just what you do with this. You're sort of the villainess of the show, but yet the audience falls in love with you. Talk about the audience's reaction.
Well, it's wonderful when you get that rapport with an audience, because people do love to hate you, don't they? It's that wonderful thing of, I can't quite believe I'm laughing at such a horrible person. But that's the humour there, and the humour is essential as well, particularly in that stage of the show, and so that they know when we come back at the wedding and recognise that perhaps we might be up to something else as well.
Oh, it's such gorgeous music. I mean, I grew up listening to it and still love it. Never gets old, and I think we're just really lucky to have such a great piece to work with.
Yeah, I agree. The music really just makes you feel the love. Can you feel the love tonight?
Definitely.
Wrong show.
Right. And also the new orchestrations, I feel like, have really increased the lushness and the passion of it, and really helped add to the dramatic content, and it helps us get into it too.
Red, the blood of angry men. Black, the dark of ages past. Red, a world about to dawn. Black, the night that ends at last.
Specifically as Enjolras, one of the great things is that you have all this passion and adrenaline that you sort of you need to somehow contain and somehow let loose. As crazy as that sounds, contradictory as it sounds. So once the audience was there, it's sort of, especially with the incredibly volatile political times that are happening in our own world right now, to have that force of those 1,100 people, however many it is out there, to use and to feed off of that energy and that adrenaline. I can't speak for any of the other characters, but for Enjolras it's perfect. I mean, it's so political and it's so passionate, and it really took my show to the next step.
It's been wonderful working with the people who were the original creative team, and to work with very talented people who, to different degrees, have or have not worked on it. I'd never worked on Les Mis before, but it's been a ride. I mean, to just sort of, on the one hand, get information from the source. That's a huge thing with this piece, even though it's been going for 21 years, and then it kind of stopped in New York City. In a way, it is like it never really stopped, because it's a masterpiece. So it's a hard thing to sort of articulate or answer. I mean, I feel very pleased with. I like the show, although on the other hand, I'm so passionately involved in it that it's hard to tell. I just know that it's been a really incredible experience working with everyone from John Caird to Claude Michel and Alain, and Cameron's always up in there. So it's been. It's been great, it's been exciting, it's been very challenging sometimes, and so here we are, and when opening night happens, it's like, okay, this is what I've done with it. I still, this is the beginning of what we're doing, and we're going to grow, but it's not mine anymore to judge, you know. I'm the last person to judge, so I hope that it's good.
It's one of the greatest roles, I think. That's also been, for me, part of what has made this experience a little bit complicated, because I think she's so amazing, and I think if I was coming to see this production, I would really want that character to be interesting, or to, you know, hear it differently, or have a good take on it. And so I've been trying to really, you know, get into that pocket of who she is, and the songs. I mean, that on my own is like, you know, one of the best known songs of this whole show. So there is a certain amount of like nerves that I feel, you know, getting especially when we first started. But I'm just so grateful to be a part of this show, and particularly to be playing this role, because honestly, you don't even have to do that much. It's so well written, and everyone kind of roots for you. So it's great. It's a great role.
It is. You have to build up an emotional stamina. You have to build up a physical stamina and a vocal stamina. I mean, there's so much detail that goes into every little bit of time you are on stage. I say to my friends that there's no light moments that Valjean has in the show. Every time he comes on, there's some major moral decision that he's making, or moral choice. So to work your body physically into that, to work your emotional core into that, to work your voice into that, to be able to sing it 8 shows a week and be emotional and committed acting wise and physically committed, it's, you know, it's a bear, but it's wildly satisfying, and it's just a gift. It's a gift and an honor to be able to do it.
If I die, let me die. Let him live. Bring him home. Bring him home. Bring him
The Tony Award-winning smash musical Jersey Boys, which tells the story of Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, continues to break box office records in New York at the Virginia Theater. Well, now the producers have sent out a national tour, which kicked off in San Francisco at the Curran Theater. We recently dropped by a rehearsal to meet the new boys and chat with Tony Award-winning director Des McAnuff and choreographer Sergio Trujillo.
When I was 10, we moved to the big city, which was Toronto. And my parents, I think to help soften the blow, you know, a little 10-year-old, no friends in a new city, allowed me to purchase my first album. And, you know, the only thing that was really interesting on the airwaves at that time, you know, was the Seasons. The Beach Boys were just starting as well, and so that was pretty interesting. But I mean, it was a kind of a musical wasteland for the most part. You know, between the time that Buddy Holly died and the British invasion, not a lot happened, and you know, the Seasons were a real bright light. So there was no hesitation. I knew that was the album that I wanted to you know, to purchase, and I of course wore the grooves off. What's interesting is I think they had a really profound impression on me, not just because of the music, but because of the structure of the band. I read the liner notes, and I remember noticing that this guy, Bob Gaudio, wrote most of the songs with this other guy outside the band named Bob Crew, who was a producer. And so I think it was a real introduction for me to the way, music was starting to work in the 60s, and that had an impact, I think, really on the rest of my career. So, when I didn't know anything about the dark underbelly behind these songs, which is, of course, what the play's about. Initially, I wasn't really that interested in doing the play. I don't normally like the catalog show, and in the early days, Marshall and Rick had really intended to kind of fictionalize a lot more. But they persuaded me to, they said they would go back to to the beginning, to a clean sheet, and we could do the outline together. So when they shared the underlying material, interviews with Bob and Frankie, and particularly an autobiography with Tommy DeVito, it just grabbed me by the throat. I had no idea that this story was about, payola and bodies in trunks of cars, and mafia, ties, and banishments to Las Vegas. I mean, it was. In fact, we can't even get all of the juicy stuff into the 2.5 hours. There's not enough room. And so as soon as I read this stuff, I became enthusiastic. And then Marshall Brickman and Rick Ellis are just the two best collaborators. And they're seasoned pros, so they're totally unthreatened. And we really had a fantastic creative relationship on this. There's a lot of give and take, and they still help me with performances and feed me ideas and fresh lines, and they've been great about just kind of receiving my own sort of structural ideas, and so it's been a real party.
Choreographing Jersey Boys was an incredible challenge because the Four Seasons didn't dance. They just stood and played their instruments. So what I had to do was I had to create vocabulary that felt that it was organic and spontaneous, but yet choreographed. So what I did was I spent time with each one of the boys, with Tommy, with Nick, with the Frankie Valli character and the Bob Cardio character, and I tailored their own suit. That was in everything. Every movement that they make in the show is choreographed for who they are in the show. And then there are moments when they all come together, and it becomes this winning team of musicians. Dance in the 60s, late 50s and 60s was of its own specific style. So what I tried to do with the show was how would someone looking back at the 50s and 60s reinvent movement today? And that's what I did with the show, with the choreography in Jersey Boys.
Walk like a man, fast as I can. Walk like a man from you. I'll tell the world, forget about a girl, and walk like a man from you.
Well, I'm playing Frankie Valli, who is kind of the headliner of the Four Seasons, and continues to be to this day, and it's an honor to be playing him. The preparation I've done for this part, I started voice and dance lessons a few weeks before rehearsals began with the rest of the company, and so I was doing those with the dance captain actually from the Broadway company, and then in rehearsals we've started blocking through the show, and they've given us a ton of resources. We had a great dramaturg on the show named Allison Horsley, and we have got all of this history on New Jersey and on all of the Four Seasons, and we learned about where they grew up and what life was like for them, and anything from minute details to how old everybody is when their birthdays are, to how many times they've been in prison and all of that. And all of these guys have had a hard upbringing.
I listened to the songs. I went on YouTube, and I must have watched 100 videos of from back when they were just they were really kind of crappy videos, but 100 videos of the Four Seasons. Even watching Bob Gaudio's shorts when he was on some TV show. Went back and watched Ed Sullivan and just really tried to look at and try to see as much as I possibly could of who Tommy DeVito was, the way that he moved, the way that he smiled, and read as much as I possibly could.
The reason that I think it will do well in California is that the story, Mr. Ellis and Mr. Brickman have written a story that has such a brilliant dramatic structure that people just identify with it right away. Also, this is the music of the people who are
who are the majority of our ticket buyers. You know, the baby boomers are who are buying the tickets. It's the soundtrack to their childhood, but it's compelling because it's a real life story that's fleshed out with this legendary music. It's not a collection of songs where the writers cobbled together a story to substantiate, you know, playing in a theatrical setting. I mean, here you have a real life story that's already true, that's already compelling. And it's told chronologically with the music fleshing it out. So, and you know, the audience waits quite a while before the big ones come, up to sometimes 40 minutes. And by the time it does, by the time Sherry, Big Girls Don't Cry, if you've sat in the New York audience, the audience goes wild. And I think the same thing's going to happen in San Francisco. Well, we're certainly working hard to make that happen.
And the preparation for this role was, we haven't had that much time. We're only 16 days into rehearsal right now, but it's been, you know what I love about it most is that Des, as the director, treats this as not a musical, not as anything other than the way Shakespeare would be treated. That's not to say that this is Shakespearean in any way, but the way he treats it is that we're sitting around a table for 2 days, even before we get on our feet, and work on scene by scene, just dramaturgy work, just going through all the moments in their lives and how important it is to know each and everything, that you're not presenting their life, but you are living their life. And as preparation goes, it's really, I didn't want to imitate Bob Gaudio. I didn't want to do a Bob Gaudio that everyone knows, because for the most part, not a lot of people know who Bob Gaudio is, and Bob's also very shy, so there's not a lot of interviews out there with him, and he's not out there as much as Frankie, obviously. As far as the role goes, I wanted to do my version of Bob Gaudio.
B.B. King's once again played host to an evening of Latin rhythms. Conceived and directed by Richard Amaro, this sizzling evening brought together the Latino entertainment community doing what they do best, and to raise money for Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS. The evening was once again hosted by two-time Tony Award winner Chita Rivera.
Listen to that music. I mean, we should most definitely do this absolutely every year. And it should be, I mean, I love it here. It's great. It has a nightclub thing. But we should be in a theater, you know, and because Richard Amaro's done an amazing job with the dancers and all of that. And these musicians, excuse me, Eddie Palmieri and all these guys, Ray Santos, I mean, it's just amazing. And I was so tired because I've been really busy. But this is spirit work, you know, this is when your spirit comes alive. And I feel great now.
You know, it's interesting. It's like, you know, just talk about the audience's reaction tonight to this show. Everybody was up on their feet dancing.
That's exactly what we want to do. We want to bring Broadway together with the Latin community and get this music out there. You know, we should be doing actually a Broadway show of Latin music, because it's so colorful, it's so rich, it's so passionate. You know, it's so comical when it needs to be. It's rich.
Okay, well, there are a lot of things to achieve, and obviously dealing with the cause first. It's very close to me. I lost my partner last year after many years of the battle with HIV and AIDS. So obviously I have a perspective about it that I think it's my duty to do something and to teach awareness and what it's all about. But we, the Latinos, like to celebrate our culture and use the music and dance to celebrate and also celebrate life and bring everybody together in this way that we do.
de 1000 años, muchos más. Yo no sé si tengamos la eternidad, pero allá tal como aquí, en la boca llevarás sabor a mí, sabor, sabor a mí. It finds every Latino. It's called Sabor a Mí, and it's a classic song in Spanish that everybody kind of grows up with. It's by Luis Miguel, and I've sung it before actually here, and because I've been kind of busy, I decided to sing it again, and everybody thought that was a good idea. So
it's such a beautiful number. You know, we're getting ready for the Gypsy of the Year. I know you've done many of those at Rent. You guys have raised so much money over the years. Talk about how generous the audience is when you ask for money, when Broadway Cares raises money. Talk about that.
You know, I think people feel honored to give money when they to give what they can when they come to a Broadway show and are asked to be a part of and participate in an important thing like Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS, and they step up and they set the bar high.
Es porque han adivinado que tu amor me ha traicionado, porque tienes otro querer. Es porque han adivinado que tu amor se ha terminado, porque existe otro querer.
Great. It's such a labor of love, and it's so many wonderful people coming together from their hearts, and that's why it's so extended to wonderful singers and dancers, and we're having a great time.
The only thing that's upsetting is that I don't like men prettier than I am, and this man is prettier than any person I know.